Traveling to Japan has always been one of my bucket list destinations. I've always wanted to go there for as long as I can remember, and so has my wife, Serena. So we were super excited to finally make this trip happen. And in addition to that, as a guitarist, there's actually even more reason to go to Japan, which most of you watching are probably already aware of. There are quite a few guitar companies that are located in Japan and make a ton of exclusive or limited edition stuff that is only available over there. You can't really get it in North America, and a lot of it I had never even seen before, even with the internet. So my mission going to Japan was to find something that was either exclusive to Japan or to find a really good deal on something used like an Ibanez J Custom or Prestige, because the price on used guitars over there that are made in Japan is also way less than the cost of importing it here to Canada. So in this video, I'm basically going to take you along with me to Japan to show you some of the coolest guitar stores that I saw while I was there. In this trip, we went to Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, and then back to Tokyo again. And there are definitely a few stores in particular that I wanted to highlight in this video. So if you're planning a trip to Japan in the future, definitely go hit up these stores because they had a ton of cool stuff. Before we move on to the rest of the video, I want to give a massive thank you to the sponsor of this video, Shibori Threads. They've been a longtime supporter of my channel for many years now, and they are infamous for making really cool tie-dye merchandise. Now, typically in the past, they've done a lot of collaboration with deathcore bands, metalcore bands, stuff like that, but this time around, they are branching out and they actually did a collab with Tekken. This is officially licensed merchandise, so it is official Tekken merch. I'm currently wearing the King hoodie and matching joggers, but you can also get stuff from some of the other characters over on their website. So if you're interested in grabbing something from Shibori Threads, the link to that is going to be in the description and the pinned comment below. And in addition to that, I have a discount code for 10% off an order of $100 or more using the discount code Baena24. So again, a massive thank you to Shibori Threads for sponsoring this video. And if you want to grab something, go use that link and that discount code once again in the description and the pinned comment. So the first place we went to was Tokyo. We were super tired when we got there and extremely overwhelmed. We ended up waking up at like 5 in the morning because it's like a 16-hour time difference between here and there. So we were up really early with kind of nothing to do. So we decided to spend the first half of the day exploring a region called Akihabara. And it is pretty much like the weeb mecca, I've heard it called. So it has like every possible anime, manga, video game, retro video game, all that stuff packed within this like 2-block radius. Almost every building is like 4, 5, 10 stories tall, and every single floor is packed wall to wall with just every piece of merchandise and figurines and collectibles and video games and everything you could possibly think of for pretty much any fandom. It was amazing, absolutely overwhelming, and we definitely went back there later in our trip and filled up a new suitcase with a ton of collectibles. But I know that's not really why you're watching this video. After we did that, the other thing that I wanted to hit up was a street in Tokyo called Ochanomizu. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciation of that, but it is essentially a street in Tokyo that only has guitar stores, and it's actually right next to one of the train stations, so it is super easy to get to. Again, it's only I think 1 stop away from Akihabara, so we actually ended up walking over there, which was really cool to kind of familiarize ourselves with our surroundings. And when we got there, it was amazing. It's like you turned this corner and you just see a full street of like 30 guitar stores in a row. It was crazy. Every single store on this street is absolutely packed with guitars. I don't know how it is where you're from, wherever you're watching, but here in Canada, normally when you go to a guitar store, there's like maybe, I don't know, 100 guitars on a wall and they're all really spaced out. You can clearly see all of them. That's not how they do it over in Tokyo. The store might be like one room that's the size of my basement, but there are easily like 300, 500, 600 guitars just packed in there, and it is overwhelming to see. There's no way you could possibly see every single guitar on this street unless you were there for like, I don't know, 3 days straight or something like that. that. So the first store that we ended up going into was called Big Boss Super Guitar Shop, and it actually ended up being one of the coolest guitar stores that we saw on this entire trip, so we were definitely spoiled right away. So it turns out that it's actually an official ESP custom shop and ESP partner, I guess. I'm not sure what the proper terminology of that would be, but there were tons of crazy ESP guitars there, as well as a bunch of guitars that were exclusive to Japan from ESP's sub-brands, which are called Edwards and Grassroots. I knew about these brands before I went to Japan, but I was really curious about these in particular because, like I said, you can't really get these in North America, and essentially what they are is made in China ESP guitars that are then sent back to Japan for final assembly. Kind of think how like Dingwall makes their bases in China but then ships them to Canada to build them and then are sold from there. Kind of a similar concept but for ESP guitars. So that's what they do for their Edwards and Grassroots brands. And there were tons of really cool Edwards guitars in particular that caught my eye right away. This store actually also had some stage used baby metal guitars, which I thought was super cool. They had one of their 9 strings, their 8 strings, and then a whole wall of just all stage used baby metal guitars, including tons of ones that I never saw at any other store on this entire trip, and they were absolutely trippy to say the least. Like I mentioned earlier, this was also an official ESP partner, so it actually had a full custom shop in the store. I don't know about you, but I've never really been into a retail store where you can actually pick out the types of wood that you want your custom guitar to be made of. It was really cool to see that in a retail store. I've just never really experienced anything like that before. They also had a few examples of builds done by other people or example builds that were obviously crazy to show off what they can do. So yeah, we were definitely spoiled by going into Big Boss Super Guitar Shop first because it kind of ruined all the other stores for us because it was just so overwhelming and so cool. But with that being said, I obviously continued it down Ochanomizu and basically went into every single guitar shop and quickly looked through all of them because we were running a bit behind. We only had like 2 hours to explore this whole section of the street. Lots of these stores had stuff that I wasn't particularly interested in, like lots of Fender, Gibson, PRS, stuff like that. Really high-end stuff that was way too expensive for what I was looking for on this trip, and a lot of it was more like vintage oriented, but there were definitely a few stores that specialized in metal guitars, and it was really cool to see. 2 of the standouts that I remember were Guitar Planet and Loud Planet, both of which had tons of metal oriented guitars there. There were lots of used J Customs at Guitar Planet in particular, as well as new ones, and those were super tempting. I kind of regret not picking up the Tim Henson signature guitar because I think it would have only ended up being like $1,800 Canadian, which is absurd. It's way more than that if you buy it here in Canada. Probably should have got that one, but oh well. Next up, I found a chain of guitar stores, which I would then see in other places across Japan later, but this is a chain called Ishibashi Music, which is a used guitar seller as well as new. So I ended up going into every single one of these that I found throughout my trip because obviously since it specializes in used gear, there were tons of different things at each store. Didn't end up finding anything here, but there was lots of cool stuff to look at for sure. And if you ever look at their website, they often have deals on used ESP and Ibanez guitars in particular that are crazy low, way lower than you would ever see here in Canada. You do have to ship them obviously, so it might add up, but hey, if you're interested, go check their website out because they have tons of cool stuff. I didn't see most of this stuff in person unfortunately, but it was still really cool to see this store in person. The last store I wanted to mention over on Ochanomizu was called Kurosawa Gaki, and this one had an entire floor dedicated to only metal guitars, and this probably had some of the coolest guitars of this entire trip other than that first Big Boss store. So they actually had 2 used Ibanez gems, which both cost over $10,000 Canadian, which is actually a pretty good deal considering what they were because these guitars are super rare and normally I've seen them sell online for definitely more than that. I should also mention that this was the first time on my trip that I came across this Edwards Alexi Laiho signature guitar in the pink finish because one of my close friends, Eric Moretin, you've probably seen him on my channel before, actually asked me before I went to Japan, he's like, hey, if you find this guitar, let me know because I'm gonna send you money so you can bring it home with you. So this was the first time I saw one of those. I didn't end up buying it at this store because this was the first day in Japan and I didn't want to buy a guitar immediately because we still had a lot of traveling to do, but I took a video of it and sent it over to him and he was very excited. There's your boy, Eric. So after that, we spent a couple more days in Tokyo. We were lucky enough to go to Yokohama and see the life-size RX-78 Gundam before it was torn down forever, which was absolutely amazing, and I'm super lucky that we got to do that. Did a couple other things, looked around at some Pokemon centers, stuff like that, and then we made our way over to Osaka. Once again, there was an exclusive ESP flagship store over in Osaka, which was really cool to see. It had a lot of similar stuff to the Big Boss store that we saw back in Tokyo, and this is kind of the point in the trip where I started to notice that one guitar in particular was really standing out to me. It was one that I saw at the first Big Boss store. I saw it at a bunch of other stores throughout my travels, and again here, and it started calling to me, and if you've seen my post on Instagram, you already know what I bought. Other than the ESP flagship store, I also went to another Ishibashi because, like I said, they sell a lot of used gear, so they had some cool stuff that I hadn't seen elsewhere. They had like an Evangelion themed 212 guitar cab, which was really cool. Obviously, I was not about to bring that home with me because it would cost a ridiculous amount of money to ship, but it was really cool. And this is also where I saw the official ESP version of a guitar that I continuously saw, which was the signature guitar for one of the guitars in Baby Metal. They had the ESP version used at this Ishibashi, which was actually a pretty good price. It was just way more money than I was willing to spend on this trip, but it was really cool to see what the full-fledged ESP version of this same guitar would have looked like if I was interested in it. The next day I ended up meeting up with my friend Jordan, and we looked at a couple more guitar shops together. There was one really cool one where I actually ended up buying 3 of these guitar tuners, which are official Pokemon and Korg guitar tuners. They were like, I don't know, $20 each. I had to have them, so I bought all 3. There's Pikachu, Snorlax, and Gengar. All the guitar stores that we ended up checking out this day were in a section of Osaka known as America-mura, which I guess is more of the American-themed section of Osaka. So there was tons of like American fashion brands and stuff like that there. And of course, guitar shops. One of the coolest stores in this region was called Mikigaki. It had a floor dedicated to high-end guitars only and had a ton of stuff there that I had never seen before in person. So it was an absolute trip to see this stuff just hanging on the walls. And it has a fan fret 7-string PRS. I've never seen one of these in person ever in my life before. It's super rare that PRS does multi-scale builds. Like I said, I've never seen one in person before. They almost never even make 7 strings as it is. That is crazy to see. 2 million-ish yen. I think that's, I don't know, what is that, like 1900 Canadian probably, something like that. Not even that, no, wait, that's $19,000. Never mind, that is crazy. This is the most expensive guitar I've seen so far. Another PRS. Looks like it's a private stock. Santana 2, clocking in at almost 2.5 million yen. Tons of crazy inlay work on it. Looks wild. So this is Steve Klein. I've never heard of this builder before. Klein Japan or Steve Klein. It looks like there's a few different variations of the name. But the thing I noticed first and foremost is this headstock. What is going on over here? I've never seen a headstock like this in my life before. So you tune it from the back by the looks of things, and then the wind is below. Very, very cool. That was kind of it for Osaka. The only other thing I wanted to mention, I didn't get a video of this, but I started to notice these things called Ibanez spot models, which I had never seen before. They were just kind of like standard Ibanez RGs or whatever, but in like way different colors than I had ever seen here in Canada. And it turns out that spot models are actually an exclusive thing to Japan. And I guess more or less it's Ibanez's models that they make in very limited quantities. They don't make enough of them to include them in any catalog. And sometimes they're even exclusive to specific retailers or specific regions of Japan. I kind of regret not picking one of these up because they actually weren't that expensive. But at the same time, I'm like, I would never really use this, but it would be cool to have an exclusive Japanese colored Ibanez RG. Another one that I kind of regretted not pulling the trigger on, but oh well. So we spent a few more days in Osaka doing a bunch of cool things. We got to pet some deer at Nara Park. We went to an aquarium. This aquarium actually had 2 whale sharks in a tank, which was absolutely ridiculous. It was the biggest aquarium tank I've ever seen in my life and had a ton of cool stuff in this one tank. And the rest of the aquarium was sick too. But anyways, so after Osaka, we made our way over to Kyoto. We were only in Kyoto for 1 full day, so we actually didn't have any time to shop for guitars. We were doing a bunch of touristy things. We saw Fushimi Inari, we saw the bamboo forest, a couple other things like that, lots of shrines and temples. Ended up randomly finding a life-sized Evangelion Unit 1, where we were on the train and we just passed by this and we were like, we are going back to see that. Anyways, on the last day in Kyoto, we were actually scheduled to leave to go back to Tokyo. And at this point in time, I kept waking up at like 5 in the morning every day because I was just not adjusting to the time change. So while Serena was still asleep, I was Googling and I found out that the guitar that my friend Eric wanted, the Alexi Laiho Edwards signature model, was actually at a store in Kyoto. And in addition to that, they had another guitar that I really wanted to buy. So I thought like, hey, maybe we should actually go to this store and check both of them out at the same time. And maybe the shop will give us a deal if we buy both. So I canceled our train tickets and moved them so that we could go to this store, and Serena was willing to do that. And I'm very thankful for that. So we're gonna go to one more guitar shop here in Kyoto, and I need to buy one for my friend Eric. He actually already sent me money for one of them. So we're gonna pick that up for him probably right now, and then hop on the train and go to Tokyo, and maybe we'll end up getting more than one guitar on this trip after all. I'm not sure. Let's find out. I don't know any E standard riffs other than like 2 Metallica riffs, but there you go, Eric. This is for you. We'll bring this home to Canada for you. It looks real nice. The neck is, this isn't for me, but just so thick. Way thicker than I thought it would be. You like that? Okay, so we've got the Twinkle 7-string that I keep seeing all over the place. Like I said, this is one of the Baby Metal guitarist's signature guitars. It's in B standard, so we're gonna tune it down obviously right away to drop A, my favorite tuning, on a 7-string. And let's actually try it, because I've only been looking at them so far. Sweet, yeah. I think we might have to get this one. Also, like, look how good they go together. Both pink. Come on. This is one that you definitely cannot get in Canada. Neither of these are. Japanese exclusive brand from a Japanese artist. What do you think, Serena?
I think you gotta get it.
You think it's gotta come home with us?
It's gotta come home.
I agree. So we're gonna talk and negotiate some prices. Maybe see if we can get a little bundle deal for both going on or something like that. And next time you see this, we'll be at home. Plugged into gear that I'm used to. Definitely not used to using a Marshall half stack, but let's see how it sounds when we get home, shall we? So obviously I'm really glad that we ended up doing this because I ended up buying 2 guitars, and that kind of takes us to right now. We did go back to Tokyo after this, but we ended up not shopping for any more guitars because I was pretty happy with my purchase at that point in time. We ended up shipping it, and also, by the way, shout out to the employee at Big Boss who literally walked with me with the guitars to the post office for like 10 minutes and then stood with me the entire time at the post office to make sure that they were shipped home properly. That is customer service that is above and beyond anything I have ever experienced in my life before, and I just wanted to give them a shout out for that. But with that being said, the guitar should be showing up basically now, so let's open it up here and see how it sounds through my normal gear, shall we? Okay, so as you can see, the guitar made it home safe and sound and looks absolutely beautiful. Check out that sparkle finish, looks ridiculous. So I'm not really gonna be doing a full demo of this guitar. This pretty much is the demo slash a very elaborate unboxing video, but I'm really happy that this guitar made it home safe and sound. It just got here today and I wanted to plug it in and play some riffs. We're tuned down to drop A. That was one of my old band Galactic Pegasus's old riffs. I don't know why that's the first thing that came to me, but hey, let's roll with it. One thing that's really interesting to note about this guitar is that the neck is way thicker than any other 7-string I have in my collection. It's definitely not uncomfortable, but it definitely feels a lot more like an older school Fender Strat type thing. Also interesting to note, this third tone knob here actually does nothing. It's just a dummy knob. I assume that the guitarist whose signature guitar this is just prefers the look of 3 knobs. I'm probably going to get rid of this completely and just move these 2 down, because I personally don't like having the volume knob there because I think it hits my pinky a lot, but that's a future problem. So since I'm not going to be doing a full-on demo of this guitar, I just thought I'd mention a few of the specs and features in this video instead. So we're looking at an alder body with a hard maple neck, a rosewood fretboard with 22 frets, 25.5-inch scaling, so a bit shorter, but kind of makes sense in going with the more Stratocaster type feel to this guitar. As for pickups, we have an EMG 85.7 and 81.7 in the bridge and neck respectively. We have a 3-way pickup selector over here, as well as a volume and a tone knob, and like I said, a third tone knob which actually doesn't do anything. We have the truss rod adjustment at the heel of the neck, which is always a nice touch. On the back of the headstock, we have Goto locking tuners in gold, as with all the rest of the hardware is all gold. Looks really nice combined with that pink finish. It's a bolt-on guitar, and one thing that I actually didn't notice when I was trying it out is there actually is no back cavity cover at all. Like, as you can see, it was never actually drilled for one. It's just meant to always be open, which is interesting. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. I also thought it was interesting that the back plate actually says ESP, as well as the battery cover. Even though it's an Edwards model, it doesn't say Edwards, it just says ESP instead. I don't know, thought that was kind of neat. And like I briefly mentioned, this is the signature guitar of one of the guitarists in Baby Metal, and that guitarist's name in particular is Takayoshi Omura. In addition to being in Baby Metal, he also appears to just be like a crazy awesome shredder over in Japan. I honestly hadn't really heard of him before, but I definitely have heard of Baby Metal, and I unironically love Baby Metal, and I thought this guitar was really nice. I loved the pink finish on it, and I just thought it looked so cool, I had to bring it home with me. So that's pretty much gonna do it for this video. I wanna give a massive thank you to you for watching this video. If you're ever considering going to Japan, I would 1000% recommend it. As someone who's wanted to go for so long, it was so cool to finally go there. Not only just for the guitars, but for everything else. So if you're debating on going, definitely go. You're not going to regret it. And if you are going to Japan and you are a guitarist, I hope that this video helped you and will guide you on some places that maybe you should check out on your journey if you end up there. Last but not least, again, a massive thank you to the sponsor of this video, Shibori Threads. Once again, the link to their website is going to be in the description and the pinned comment below. And be sure to use that discount code for 10% off an order of $100 or more. And last but not least, a big thank you to all my Patreon members whose names are on the screen at this point in time. For most of my videos, if you want guitar tabs, audio downloads, stems, or a shout out on the screen, you can find information for all of that over on my Patreon page, which is also linked in the description below. That's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. You'll see more of this guitar on my channel at some time in the near future, and I'll see you later.